to disappoint you. Huh? You triggered my trap card!
What's up, nerds and nerdettes and wee little nerdlings all? It's your buddy Big Johnny G, the Two Gun Fix-It presents Legendary Gaming.
So the setup for a die in the dungeon is two parts. There's a universal part of the setup, and then the second part of the setup is dependent on what exact mission, adventure, quest you're doing. So let's take a look at the more universal part of the setup first. The creature. This is probably the most important decision you're going to make, is you're going to decide what monster, what creature you are going to be trying to, well, take out the murder hobos with. So we have the Troll of Bones, the Die Roller, the Die Drake, Tombstone, the Undyed Knight, and the Diamond. Each of these have their own unique abilities and their own unique deck of abilities. But we're going to take a look at that in a moment. After you've determined which creature you're going to use, you're going to take the appropriate creature board and a set of dice. A D4, a D6, a D8, a D10, a D12, and of course the D20. Each of these creatures also has a deck of 4 cards associated with it, and these 4 unique cards are going to be taken along with the creature board and the set of dice. Now let's take a look at your creature board, the dice, and how you're putting this all together. Now on the bottom of your creature board, you're going to see a series of stats, and they are going to be going from left to right on the bottom, and the first one being time. Now your 20-sided die you're going to set to 20, and you're going to put in the time slot. Now all the way over on the other end of that, you're going to see the ability, and that is a D4, all the way at the end of might. And you're going to set a D4 to 1, and you're going to place it in there. Now as far as the rest of your stats, moving left to right after time, you're going to see might, agility, magic, and health. And you're going to take the rest of the dice and you're going to place them in whichever of these slotted abilities, stats that is, that you want. And you're going to place them there on their maximum value. So let's say you're using the Die Roller. Perhaps you see this Die Roller as being more magical than mighty or athletic. So you decide you want to put the D12 in the magic slot. You're going to do that with the 12 facing up. So you're going to do this for each of your abilities. You're going to choose a die, max it out, and put it there. All of your stats, might, agility, magic, and health. Now on the left-hand side, from top to bottom, or near bottom anyway, you're going to see a series of D6 indentations. From top going down, it's 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. These are for your dynamic dice. Now we're not going to get into that right now because that has to do with combat. But remember that it's over there, and you're going to be accumulating sort of XP with that system. You're also going to notice on the right-hand side of the board, there are 2 abilities, and they have a point system associated with your D4 ability. And these can be used during combat that you have the appropriate amount of points. And again, since that has to do with combat, we're not going to be getting into that much further right here, right now. Also, you get 4 cards. Whichever of the creatures you picked, there are 4 associated cards. These are one-shot abilities. They cost you ability points off of your D4, and after they're used, the cards are discarded and put back in the box. They can't be used again for that adventure. And then you're going to want to make sure that everyone has a player aid card, a little cheat sheet card, you and your other player, or 4 players. If you have 2 sets of Die in the Dungeon, you can play up to 4 players. But if there's more than just you, make sure each player in the game has a copy of the reference sheet. Now you'll notice that there are a few other sets of dice besides the one that you grabbed for your creature. And these are going to be used for making rolls during the game, as well as when you upgrade your dice through the use of experience. Those little D6s on the left-hand side that are known as dynamic dice. They're going to be helping you increase your abilities later in the game after combat. Now, off to the side, but easily within reach, you're going to want to put the deck of hero cards. Now, the hero cards are broken up into a few little categories, and in the order that combat happens in with the heroes, with your creature, the heroes attack in order of the fighter, the rogue, the wizard, and the cleric is last. The cleric doesn't actually fight in most cases, but we'll talk about that when we do the combat stuff. So you're going to want to keep each of these somewhere handy. Probably best to keep them in class order, and it would also behoove you to keep them in numerical order. So the fighters, there are 4 level 1 fighters, there are 4 level 2 fighters, there are 2 level 3 fighters, and 2 level 4 fighters. I believe that's how it rounds out for each of the classes, 4, 4, 2, 2, I think. But keep them in order. It's going to make combat go faster because you're going to be able to get them out to the board, onto the table that much quicker. Now, also in the box, you're going to find some tiles. These represent the dungeon, and in order to help you set things up quickly and find the tiles that you need as fast as you can, it's best to set them up in order. So you can set them up with the dead end, with the turn, with the 2-way, the 3-way, the 4-way, and the tiles with the epic heroes on them. Some adventures, most of them use epic heroes, but not quite all of them, especially the early ones where you're still learning the game. Now you're going to go through the dungeon book, and you're going to pick an adventure, a dungeon that's appropriate and catches your attention. Maybe you're doing them one-off, maybe you're trying to do them in a certain order, but picking one is the next step in setup because it will tell you how the dungeon tiles are going to be used. Now, if this is your first game, then you might want to play the Tunnel Entry. The Entry Tunnel Adventure Dungeon is the very first one set up. It's available on the back of the cover of the box. And everything is all set up there, and it tells you exactly which tiles to put in what places, and it's beautifully illustrated on the inside of the box cover. I love playing the entry simply because I love using the box and seeing the walls and the tiles and the floor. It just really looks beautiful. Now, if you're not using the entry tunnel, if you're some sort of rebel and just want to jump into any adventure that you can find, or if you've played that and you're continuing on, then remember to always go by the guide in the dungeon book. It will tell you which tiles to use and how they're placed. Now, there are a few typos I've noticed, unfortunately, in the Dungeon Quest book. And if you come across this, go by the photo, go by the picture, because each of these dungeon adventures in the dungeon book not only has the written setup, but it shows you the visual picture of what your tile setup is going to look like. So go by the picture. If it says there are 2 dead end tiles to use, but you see 3 in the picture, know you have to choose 3 dead end tiles. Now, otherwise it will tell you right in the write-up which tiles to use, how many of them, and it'll also give you notes. And in some of the notes, it'll tell you specifically to use a certain level of the tiles or not to use a certain level of tiles. And this is all geared for the game and the gameplay testing that has gone on at FunDaMental Games for them to realize how it's going to play out and work best. So go by these guidelines. If it says no level 4 tiles, don't put any in. Unless you've mastered the game so much that you want more of a deeper challenge. Otherwise, go by what it tells you as far as putting in certain tiles and taking out certain tiles, and use the photo as a guideline for exactly how many. Now, besides the tiles, there are also tokens, and the tokens in the game represent objects that you're going to get that are going to give you improvements during the game. Perhaps you're going to get a bonus to your health, or to your might, or one of your other stats. There are also different tokens in there to represent things such as the Die Splicer Beast, which is a magical beast that in some of the adventures you may come across, and he can help you out in an adventure or two. There's also the Kobold Die Caddy, and this token has a very interesting setup because it's a two-sided card once you acquire this, and it flips back and forth in its effect. So make sure you read that card if it ever comes out. There are a lot of other tokens to be placed out in the game, and each picture, each setup and write-up will tell you exactly where they go and which ones to place down. Generally speaking, once you enter a tile, you automatically gain whatever token is on there. Usually, there's no sense of having to complete the tile first to win the tile in order to get the token. You get on the tile, you get the token. Now, although this game is not set up and written to be specifically a campaign game, it is kind of loosely written that way, in a sense that it has a very definitive beginning and end, and there are a few simpler earlier adventures and some definitely harder ones. So I've put together my own little list of what I consider a campaign run from beginning to end, in case you're curious on doing it. And that's going to start off with the entry tunnel. Now from there you're going to go on to the rookies, the kobold, the Die Minions, Cronin the Barbarian, It's a Trap, Warlock Hunt, Legion of Deity, Elven Assault, Demolition Dungeon, Mysterious Parties, The Final Assault, and the Die Master. This should give you a good run from beginning to end, easier to more difficult, as well as maintaining the loose kind of story that it has going with you, the creature that got caught, captured by the Die Master, and forced into patrolling and protecting the Die Master's dungeon from these murder hobo heroes. And if you do this, you're going to have a really fun 13-part campaign. And with that, now you are completely set up and ready to play. You've chosen your creature, you've set up your creature board, your dice, your cards, the hero cards have been set up, and you've picked a dungeon, and you've gotten those tiles all done and set up and ready to go. So now it's time to start the game. And there will be a follow-up video to this on how to play the game turn by turn as it goes, and that'll be from a one-player perspective, as the game is primarily written as a one-player game.